Yeah.
We've got a rematch down in New Orleans. Welcome back to the Gridiron expert breaking down the final college football playoff matchup between number 3 Ohio State and number 2 Clemson. Last year's matchup, guys, was one of the best playoff matchups we have ever seen. The Buckeyes jumped out to a 16-0 lead. Were unable to get the ball in the end zone early in that game. And that left the door open for Clemson, who scored 21 unanswered points to come back and win the game 29-23, picking off Justin Fields in the end zone with just a few seconds remaining. An unbelievable matchup in the Fiesta Bowl. And now we have the rematch we've all been waiting for, a chance to see if Ohio State, who's just 6-0 this year, but champions of the Big Ten, see if the Buckeyes can get revenge, or if Clemson, champions of the ACC, if they can extend their winning streak to 5 over Ohio State, winning all 5 matchups against the Buckeyes, and this would be their 3rd straight against the Buckeyes in the college football playoff. So we have a lot to cover in this game, guys. By far, to me, going to be the best of the playoff matchups, the best of the 2 playoff matchups. The FPI also agrees, the Football Power Index, seeing this as a 50-50 split. Could see it going either way. Both teams having a 50% chance to win this one. So we're here to break down everything you need to know. We're here to break down the offense, the defense, the keys of the game, and who wins this highly anticipated matchup in the Sugar Bowl. So let's go ahead and start with the offense, and let's start with Ohio State. Again, a team that some people thought deserved to be in the playoff, and some that didn't think they deserved to be in the playoff. Remember, the Buckeyes being in the Big Ten, we're going to have a short schedule anyways. And the schedule continued to get shorter with all these COVID cases. So they're 6-0. Rules were bent a little bit, but they still won the Big Ten, and the committee still viewed them as one of the top 4 teams in the country. And here they are in the playoff, despite every other team in the playoff having played 11 games. The Buckeyes right now are dealing with a handful of COVID issues. They were dealing with that back in that Big Ten championship game against Northwestern. And we wonder if that could still play a factor going into the Sugar Bowl. The big name you got to watch out for is Chris Olave. We assume the star wide receiver will be back for the Sugar Bowl against Clemson. If not, this Buckeyes offense takes a major hit. So that's something you want to continue to monitor. You also want to continue to monitor Justin Fields. Sprained his thumb in the Big Ten championship against Northwestern. Something you need to watch out for there. How well will he play considering he has looked human this year? Justin Fields, great quarterback, going to be a high NFL draft pick, has thrown for over 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns this year. But he has thrown 5 interceptions so far this year, all 5 of those coming against the best 2 defenses he has faced in Northwestern and Indiana. And we'll touch more on that later, but in case you didn't know, Clemson has a pretty dang good defense. So you look at Ohio State across the board. We talked about Justin Fields. They're averaging 42.5 points per game. And the balance for Ohio State is what impresses me. And I know the numbers for some will be skewed, but still, through 6 games, half a season, these numbers speak for themselves. 253.5 passing yards per game, 275.7 rushing yards per game. That is the number that I think is the most impressive to me. And it's no surprise then that I believe that the X factor in this game, that key player is not Justin Fields, but it's Trey Sermon, or really the duo of Trey Sermon and Master Teague at running back. I want to focus more on Sermon, though, who was the reason that Ohio State won that Big Ten championship against Northwestern. Sermon has rushed for 675 yards and 3 touchdowns this year, but he had 331 yards and 2 touchdowns against Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. Saved his best performance for the biggest game of the year. His Oklahoma transfer coming through clutch in that situation. The question is, can he replicate any sort of success against a very stingy Clemson rushing defense? I don't expect him to rush for over 300 yards in this one, but getting over 100, maybe 120, could be key into taking a little pressure off of Justin Fields and potentially leading the Buckeyes to a national championship. You look at Clemson, look at their offense. They're averaging 44.9 points per game, and we know who they're led by. The Heisman Trophy finalist in Trevor Lawrence. Arguably, I'm not going to even say arguably, he is going to be the #1 NFL draft pick come April. Lawrence has thrown for over 2,700 yards this year, 22 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. Keep in mind, he missed a handful of games due to COVID-19. Since he has returned from COVID, he has thrown for 920 yards, 5 touchdowns, and has completed 66.3% of his passes. All of that over the span of about, 3 games since he returned from COVID? Ridiculous numbers, and he's hoping to continue that success in the Sugar Bowl. When I look at Clemson, Lawrence is obviously the undisputed star. He's the undisputed leader of the team and of the offense, but the offense, to me, has that big 3, very similar to Alabama with Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Devontae Smith. Clemson has theirs with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne at running back, and Amari Rodgers at wide receiver. Etienne has over 800 rushing yards this year, 13 touchdowns. Amari Rodgers, over 900 reception yards and 7 touchdowns this year, had a fantastic performance against a good Notre Dame defense, 221 yards and a touchdown against the Fighting Irish in that ACC championship game. The question is, can Clemson's big 3, especially Amari Rodgers, can they turn in a big day against this Ohio State defense? You look at Ohio State, again, you talk about numbers, you talk about stats. Maybe they're a little bit skewed, maybe they're a little bit lopsided because, again, they've played 6. Clemson's played 11. But the Buckeyes, they're allowing 21 points per game, 261.3 passing yards per game this year. That's how much they're allowing. And that's both those, to me, big numbers for the Buckeyes compared to the numbers they were allowing last year. And allowing over 260 passing yards per game, that concerns me a little bit. Because listen to these numbers here. They allowed 491 passing yards to Michael Penix at Indiana. They allowed 281 yards to Sean Clifford at Penn State. Those are arguably the top 2 quarterbacks that Ohio State has faced this year, and they didn't necessarily turn in great defensive performances against either. Trevor Lawrence is better than Michael Penix and Sean Clifford. So if Ohio State struggled a little bit against those 2 quarterbacks, will they struggle again against arguably the best quarterback in the country? The one thing that Ohio State does have going for them, though, is the fact they do know how to turn the ball over. They know how to force some turnovers and create takeaways. They have forced 16 turnovers this year, and that is an impressive number through just 6 games. 10 of those 16 turnovers were fumbles. Another thing you want to look at for Ohio State is while the passing numbers, the numbers they're allowing are a little concerning, you wonder if Trevor Lawrence is going to have a big one here, the rushing defense is fantastic. Buckeyes are allowing just 96.7 rushing yards per game, which means if they can bottle up Travis Etienne, they can slow him down and try to make him almost a non-factor. They can hone in more on that pass, hone in more on Trevor Lawrence, make Clemson one-dimensional, and might make this game relatively close and make Clemson struggle a little bit offensively. That running game is going to be key for both teams, and Ohio State boasting one of the better running defensive marks in the country. Unfortunately for Ohio State, Clemson's the exact same way. The Tigers are very, very strong against the run, allowing just 99.8 rushing yards per game, so less than 100 rushing yards per game. And if you want to see, to me, how different Clemson is on defense when they're at full strength, I think all you have to do is look at the tape from the first game against Notre Dame and the second game against Notre Dame. Game 1 in South Bend allowed 140 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns to Kyren Williams. Game 2 in the ACC Championship, they held Kyren Williams to 50 yards. That's it. They had 6 sacks against Notre Dame in the ACC Championship. I mean, this Clemson defense was playing lights-out football over the back half of the season, probably by the last 3-4 games of the year, when their defense was finally back at full strength. And Brent Venables, a major reason for that, the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. The Tigers are allowing just 298.5 total yards per game, so they're under that 300-yard mark that we always talk about. They're allowing just 198.6 passing yards per game. So again, that's that concern for me with Justin Fields. He struggled against Indiana. Great defense. He struggled against Northwestern. Another solid defense. Is he going to struggle in this game against Clemson? One of the best defenses in the country, allowing less than 200 passing yards per game. A defense that has forced 13 interceptions. If Fields is slightly injured with that thumb, if he doesn't have Chris Olave, and say he's fully healthy and does have Olave, he might struggle a little bit because he had both his health and his star wide receiver against Indiana, and still did not have a great day. Still lucky to survive that game 42-35. So that's my concern here, guys. Justin Fields against elite defenses has struggled. He's looked mortal. And Clemson is an elite defense, and that's going to be the key in this one. Remember, you think there's revenge on the line. Ohio State wants revenge. Justin Fields wants redemption for that miscommunication at the end of the game, throwing that game-winning, interception for the Tigers in the end zone towards the end of that Fiesta Bowl last year. He wants redemption, but can he get it? Couple keys to the game here, guys. Couple of keys to the game for Clemson and for Ohio State. Again, I genuinely believe this will be the better of the two playoff matchups, and this is certainly the most intriguing because of what happened last year. The first key I have for both teams is who wins the line of scrimmage. And throughout our bowl predictions, we have talked about that for a lot of games. We've talked about that for a lot of teams. I think it certainly applies the most here, though, because Clemson has dominated the line of scrimmage this year. The Tigers have 44 sacks this season. 44 sacks this season. So they're averaging 4 sacks per game. They had 6 against Notre Dame back in the ACC title game. Remember, the Fighting Irish have a pretty dang good offensive line. Clemson, on the other hand, has allowed just 18. They've allowed 18. They have 44. Ohio State has allowed 18, but that's just through 6 games. So Ohio State's giving up about 3 sacks per game so far this year. The Buckeyes have forced 17 sacks. So again, numbers could be a little bit different if Ohio State had played 5 more games. They were even with Clemson. But the fact they've allowed 18 through 6 games is concerning. The offensive line did great against Northwestern, opening lanes for Trey Sermon to rush for over 300 yards. But can they do that again against Clemson? Can they do well enough protecting Justin Fields, giving him time to throw against his Clemson front seven that, again, led by James Skalski? Can they do anything to protect him and prevent Ohio State from having and allowing 6 sacks like Notre Dame did just a few weeks ago? This Clemson defense at full strength is completely different. You know Brent Venables has a bunch of different formations, has a bunch of different schemes drawn up to try to create the most pressure and the most negative plays on this Buckeyes offense. So that's a major concern for me. I think right now Clemson owns that line of scrimmage edge. And it's going to be interesting to see if that changes within the first few minutes, which we will know within the first few minutes who's going to own that line of scrimmage in this Sugar Bowl. Another key you want to watch out for here is the run game. And that kind of goes along with the line of scrimmage here. We're all focused on the quarterback battle. That's the most probably intriguing for most. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, both going to be first-round draft picks. That's the battle we want to watch. I'm more intrigued right now in the running battle here. The battle of Trey Sermon and Master Teague going up against Travis Etienne, and which defense does the better job of shutting down the opposing run game. Because again, each of these defenses is allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game. They're allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game. Whoever wins that battle is going to win the game, if you ask me personally. If you genuinely ask me, whoever wins that rushing battle is going to win the game. And right now, I think I still give the edge to Clemson with the run game. I know Sermon had a phenomenal game against Northwestern. Clemson's not Northwestern. Hate to break it to you. They're not Northwestern. Their defense is a little bit better than the Wildcats. And you look at Travis Etienne and their run game, he has been not just a force on the ground, but he's been a force in the passing game as well. He was a force last year in the Fiesta Bowl, and he's going to be a force again now. Etienne has 524 reception yards and 2 reception touchdowns. Master Teague and Trey Sermon have combined for just 79 reception yards and 0 touchdowns. Again, I know that's not necessarily the way that Ohio State plays football. I know that Ohio State has played 5 less games than Clemson. But I can promise you that if they had played 5 extra games, those 2 running backs combined would not have combined for 524 reception yards. It just wasn't going to happen. So right now, if you're looking at a dual threat ability from a running back perspective, Travis Etienne's going to own that edge. He's more of a threat, which is a bigger problem for Ohio State's defense that has been relatively inconsistent so far this year. So that's the key, guys. Which running backs win that battle? Which defense shows up and shuts down the run? And judging from recent performances, I'm going to have to side with Clemson on that one. I really am, but that's going to be a key yet again. So what's going to happen down in New Orleans, guys? Again, the very highly anticipated rematch. We didn't know if we were going to get it, but we're lucky. We are. 2020 is one good thing to come out of it. We're getting a college football playoff rematch between Ohio State and Clemson. The third straight meeting in the playoff between the Buckeyes and the Tigers. Again, this to me is the better of the two semifinals. We believe Alabama will take relatively easy care of Notre Dame. This one, the nightcap, is going to be a fun one, the most intriguing one. Certainly, there's a chance for Ohio State to go out there and get revenge. That's the big storyline here. Can Justin Fields redeem himself? Can the Buckeyes get to the national championship game? As someone once pointed out to me, the last time that no one gave Ohio State a chance in the playoff, back in 2014, they won the whole thing. No one thought Ohio State slipping in there at the 4 would win the national championship, would even beat Alabama. But yet they did, and then they beat Oregon for the title. Could the same fate be in store now in 2020? Clemson. Obviously, this is a chance for them to show, yeah, they're legit. We know that. This is a chance really for Dabo Swinney to make a statement. He has really dogged on Ohio State. He's made a lot of comments about Ohio State, even ranked them 11th in his poll just a few weeks ago. He didn't believe that Ohio State's a top 4 team. He doesn't believe that Ohio State should be in the playoff. So this is a chance for him to, put his money where his mouth is. Let's go out there. Let's beat Ohio State. Let's show them they don't deserve to be here and show why we still are a top 2 team in the country and why we are the biggest threat to Alabama and might have a chance to take them down in the national championship. So a lot is on the line here down in New Orleans. But again, I look at a bunch of different things here, and one thing still points out to me and holds out to me. Ohio State, there is a difference of playing 6 games compared to 11 games. I believe those 5 games make a big difference. I look at what Notre Dame did, or what Clemson did to Notre Dame. They defeated the second-ranked team in the country at the time, defeated them by 24 points. 24 points in their conference championship. Ohio State needed 331 yards from their running back and a couple of good turnovers to beat Northwestern by 12. Keep in mind they were trailing 10-6 late in the third quarter in that game. I look at all those things combined. Right now, I don't know if Ohio State has what it takes to beat Clemson in this one. Clemson's a different team. They're a different animal when they're fully healthy. They're going to be fully healthy in this game. They're ready to go out there and make a statement. And while I do think it is relatively close, I do think it is Dabo Swinney and the Tigers that get the job done down in New Orleans. I just don't see Ohio State being able to get the job done in this one after watching them all year long. And again, only 6 games. So it will be the Tigers that win the Sugar Bowl. It will be the Tigers that will face off against Alabama in the national championship. The only team that I think has a chance to dethrone and really take down Alabama this year. And it will be the Tigers that gets their 5th straight win over Ohio State, their 3rd straight win over the Buckeyes in the college football playoff. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below. We have so much exclusive content for you. GE merchandise. You want to check it out. It's a perfect gift, perfect way to support our channel. Make sure you go check that out. Check out our Against the Spread picks, our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Our newsletter also found on the website, Patreon account, BetNow promo code, and offers down there. Everything is for you, the diehard college football fan. You're going to find something that's going to help you, benefit you, something you're going to enjoy. So check it out, all down there in the description. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.